Welcome back to the channel, and thank you all for watching HCKT TV. Make sure you visit Everett, Kentucky. That's my hometown and the hometown of heroes. While you're visiting Everett, stay at Black Mountain Cabins and Campers, located there in Everett, Kentucky, just minutes from the trailhead. Also, while you're in Everett, eat at the Southern Belle Restaurant, located in downtown Everett. Also, if you support the channel, scan that QR code. Let's get started into this video. Thank you for watching. Where is the transparency at, Mr. Government? I can't see it. The Black Mountain Off-Road Adventure Area has released a 2025 riding schedule, so please come to Harlan County and ride with me. I hope to see you there. How are we doing, everybody? Here is part 2 of when the hurricane hit the Hollers. We're going to call it, They Watched the Mountains Cry. Let's get into it.
They was not a power pole. They was nothing. And of course, we ended up with 3 to 4 feet from building, with trying to evacuate people out of it. And they're actually trying to put the river back somewhere where it was at. We ended up having 3 or 4 vehicles wash up against that bridge and some campers, and it basically become a dam. It funneled every bit of that water right down the highway here, and that's what got this building here was it was a big old block building, 2,500 to 3,000 square foot building, and it completely just destroyed it. It leveled it. You know, we was probably up for at least 40 hours straight during that 3-day period. I mean, we was functioning on nothing but adrenaline. That's it.
I think probably the thing that sticks out to me the most, when you could hear the wind and you could hear the rain, but there was this like what sounded like a train. And I realized that train was the river.
I live here, so I'm partial, but it's one of the most beautiful places in the world to me. Arguably one of the most beautiful places on the Appalachian Trail. Then you got the highest mountain east of the Mississippi with Mount Mitchell right there on one side. And then you got beautiful Grandfather Mountain. Very scenic, beautiful place for festivals. Key industries, you know, we're running microchips out of our mines that are high purity quartz. It has a growth path, but that's been interrupted. I think we were shell shocked.
The worst of it set in that morning. We were apart. She was at her mother's house, and I was at home with the kids.
I was up all night, and where my parents' house is built, it's on a hill. So all the rain ran away from us. But the thing up there is the wind. I mean, all throughout the windows, everything was creaking. And then you start hearing things fall. I watched a tree fall down on my late father's workshop all night. That's all I heard was wind and just the cracking of everything. And that noise you never, ever forget.
Got a text from my dad saying that our office, which is kind of up a little ways from here, was flooded. We're drained backed up. You're talking a couple inches, and there was nobody out on the road. There was already trees that had fallen. I mean, you're talking horizontal rain, wind everywhere. Called her. We're in the midst of talking. I take another phone call, go back to her, and then she gets out about 2 words. And
I was like saying, I'm watching trees fall just everywhere right now. And I'm like, Chase, hello? And then just silence.
Being from the Northeast, we didn't get a whole lot of hurricanes. You'd see it on TV, but there wasn't a whole lot of point of reference for me sitting there at 6:30 as soon as you could see. And so for about an hour and a half, I just sat there at my kitchen window and heard trees popping and watched them fall. Pop, pop, pop. You could feel the whole house shake.
Then we start about 7 a.m. You start seeing the waves come out of the storm. My daughter and I, we became concerned about her grandmother. Her grandmother's house, it's prone to flooding where she lives on a heavy rain, let alone what we're seeing right now. And at this point, my next door neighbor, he probably has 6 feet of water in his house. And as we're getting to her grandmother's house, the stream is coming down the middle of the road. So we're literally driving upstream to get to her grandmother's. Luckily, her grandmother was safe.
I slept all through the night. I mean, I heard it raining so hard, the wind blowing. I heard all of that. Wasn't afraid. I slept through the night and got up the next morning and looked out, and it just looked very strange outside. And I just kept going from window to window looking because I could hear trees snapping.
And it was about 9:30 in the morning, and I drove over Cane River Bridge, and I realized that the water was almost to crest the bridge, and I realized this was something major. This was something that was going to be life-changing for everyone here. I would say 3 to 5 minutes later, lights out. We lost all internet service. We lost all power. We lost landline service. Everything was out. We were isolated.
Anytime there is a major event, communications is always the downfall, and it's just the nature of the beast.
I've never seen a situation, even that, you know, and I've talked to several people that, you know, are from Florida and lived through many hurricanes and all this, but even then, I've asked them specifically, when you have a hurricane, does your cell phone service completely go out? And they're like, no.
And it was 10:30, and I went and looked in the backyard, and the water was about a foot from my house. I looked out the front window, and a wall of water to my left came over the fence. I hit the panic button on my car so that someone could hear me, and water was coming in my house already. Grabbed my cat, tried to open the door, and was pushing against the water coming in. It took him a few minutes, but my neighbor got his big Dodge truck that was the heaviest vehicle he had. And he was fighting the steering wheel to get to me. And I walked out to get in his truck, carrying the cat and my purse. And the water was at my waist when I climbed in his car or his truck. It just happened so quickly.
God, the smell of gas and oil is so strong.
By about 11 o'clock, the water had reached its highest. There were only a few vehicles left that had been parked there, some of the heavier ones. Train cars had been moved. Vehicles had been washed away.
Our daughter was like, look, a house. I was like, yeah, I know, honey. There's a lot of houses damaged. She's like, no, there goes a house down the river. And I'm like, are we actually living in this right now? This is the moment right now.
We've had several tropical storms and all, but it was just the devastation and the fear of every time we looked, there's more trees are falling and more debris. And like I say, I can't remember. It wasn't uncommon to have a mudslide or two, but not every way that you turned.
My neighbor's house, there was a huge mudslide that came from the top of the mountain all the way down to the river. And then I looked up, and then there was just power lines was just, you know, like a bullwhip. I mean, it was going every which direction. And my wife went out and looked, and the neighbor's house had got washed off of the foundation. And We waded water almost waist deep to get her out.
By 10 o'clock, the rain had stopped and a beautiful blue sky outside. You walk out and you look up, and it's just a beautiful day if you look up. But if you look down, it's just sheer devastation everywhere you look, in every direction. My sister, her family, they live right next to a river. My dad lives in Madison County. So I'm thinking, how am I going to get in contact with these people to make sure they're okay?
And like everybody else in that moment, if your family doesn't live beside you, you're worried about them and you're wondering what's happened. And without any service, without any way of checking on people, you do what's innate is you just get in your car and drive.
I kind of started getting worried about some of my family. My father just recently passed away at the end of July, and I was worried about my mom, you know, kind of being by herself and with my special needs brother. So I told my husband, I said, we might need to get out and just check on Mom because we can't call her.
You would drive as far as you could until you couldn't, and then you would cross over rocks, walk over water, and then you would just hike down, and then you would hitch a ride with somebody that was coming through.
Every time you saw somebody you knew and they were alive, it was like a giant reunion. We saw two friends of ours hiking down the road because they couldn't get out of their house. They're hiking with their dog. We pulled.
Yeah, I screamed out,
pulled the
like,
car
oh
up,
my God.
ran up to them and we're hugging them and stuff. And
just crying. And
Yeah.
like, wow, okay, you're alive. Like,
because when the scope of it all kind of started to come into focus, then you're thinking everyone that I know was in danger.
My sister lives about 2 minutes down the road from me, so we went and checked on them, and they were okay, thankfully. My brother-in-law, the pastor of Elk Show Baptist Church at Hardscrabble, and him and my husband just ran to check on the church and some of the church members, and when they came back, they had videos and pictures, and just we didn't realize it was that bad, and I was shocked. And I said, well, we definitely need to go check on my mom and brother, and thankfully they were okay.
My parents live in an area that's more remote than mine, and you have to go across the mountain to get there. And luckily, I was able to get down into V-Log and Bald Mountain where they live. But my sister-in-law, she could not get a hold of her family, and she was really worried about them. So my nephew and I, we got on the side-by-side in the four-wheelers. So eventually we got to where Becky lived, and, you know, she was there. So we made sure that we took proof of life pictures for everybody, so my sister-in-law, you know, would know that her mom was okay.
My daughter and I, we attempt to jump back in the car to go check on people again. The eastbound lanes of 19 of the bypass was part of the river, was part of the creek. It was actually running down the middle of the 4-lane. We questioned whether my vehicle was going to be able to make it through it or not, but we were bound and determined that we had some people we needed to check on, make sure that we were okay. We check on her mother. Everything is good there.
The roads were washed out, or so many trees that you could not get out of the county for the initial couple days.
Still cleaning.
Before noon, the roads are full of these vehicles, and chainsaws are humming everywhere. The fire department, they're out. The police, they're out. I mean, everybody's doing their job. Now, keep in mind, those people that were out doing their job, those were people that could get out.
But finally, when we start moving out, you start seeing neighbors come out, and they come out with their chainsaws.
But everybody came together quickly and worked hard together. You had people that had equipment, and the water was going down, so they were taking that equipment, moving the muck and the mud and all the debris out of the road.
My neighbor, Tony Beaver, went and got a track hoe and started working on the road. And it took him approximately 7 hours to get just that one mudslide out of the road. It was bad.
My first job was I just grabbed my chainsaws and my friend Dennis and I started cutting open roads, taking down windfalls that were on Main Street, different places that we knew were going to be a problem.
We grabbed a skid steer piece of equipment and was trying to find access to my sister, who was on the north end of the county at my house. She lives right below me. And everywhere we went, the road was either gone or there was a mudslide or multiple mudslides. And we ended up working for 6 hours just to clear one landslide. When we finally got in there, it was almost dark. And to see her and her family was fine. And, you know, I had a feeling that she was okay, but I didn't realize, like, what kind of moment that was until I saw a dad hug his daughter and him and all this mystery of not knowing, you know.
Him and other men worked to cut countless trees out of the way on our road.
It took me like 3 different times going out
Yeah.
there to finally get to her.
Walked over 8 trees just coming up the driveway just to get up to us because it's a long driveway.
She tells this real romantic story like I come walking up the driveway.
You did.
Like I'm some sort of knight in shining armor. Really, her driveway is like this. So I was just really out of breath.
I jumped into his arms. I'm like, just so thankful you're alive and you're here. And like, now it's like, okay, help. What do we do?
There's parts of the communities where the road and the infrastructure was so washed out that the only way in and out was either by helicopter or by horseback.
We live in a very rural area, mountainous terrain. It's very steep.
Because of the terrain and the mountains and those hollers, the access is very limited on a good day, on a blue sky day.
Wow, our biggest challenge, the roadway very narrowly follows the river. That was a big issue and why we were cut off. No one can get in, no one can get out.
There was some notice from the 911 center to get to higher ground if you live close to the water. Any loss of life in any event is not okay.
We knew we had reports of people in distress. We could not get to them, but there were at least 4 that we knew for sure. We hadn't heard numbers, but we did help in the retrieval process of these folks. And it's devastating at just one. Well, for a community this size, that's a lot. That's a big impact.
We still have one person unaccounted for that is a Mitchell County resident. The numbers are definitely higher than they should be. But again, I don't think that anyone understood the reality of what we were going to see.
And some others that were severely injured that are still alive. Some lost fingers, limbs, lower extremities, legs, sprains, fractures, different things. But as far as lacerations, hands, people trying to hold on, people trying to climb over things. And we got to them as fast as we could, but we had no way. There was just no roads, no access anywhere. Even on foot, it was a challenge. In our mind, we had no communication with the outside. We thought, this was this way all over.
I've never experienced a time since I put one of these things in my hand for good and that became everything that you live your life on. I've never experienced a time when this thing just became a way to tell time. That was it. Mm-hmm. When people started to hear that out at the top of we call it the top of the mountain. You go to the top right out there and you can see a gorgeous view. But because there's such a long range view, you could get just the very inklings of a cell phone reception. And people started to get word of that. For the first 3 or 4 days of that, you would go out there and literally there was people were just parked all in the field, all in the parking lot, everywhere on the sides of the road. Yeah. 400 or 500 people out there just talking on cell phones.
It's wild. And then there's the bridge you go under before you go down the mountain. There was just people sitting.
Yeah, on the Parkway Bridge, sitting on the Parkway Bridge, just talking. And that was one of those where it's like, this is a scene out of an apocalypse movie. I remember going home and we just sat down and it was like, okay, it felt wrong to sit down because you were like, I should be doing something.
Yeah. I just made dinner and we were sitting there after and just in the dark. And I'm like, this doesn't seem right. We need to know something.
So we pull into the police station and Casey Cook, the police chief, pulls in right after us. And I took one look at Casey and I could tell he had a long day. I just thought, I said, Casey, I'm just 2 minutes of your time. just tell me what's going on, so I can tell other people. And he looked at me straight in the face and was like, we don't know, man. Emergency services is down. All the communications is down. He said the only way we've got to hear from anybody is this radio. He turns on his radio, and it's like 400 people talking on it at the same time from all over Western North Carolina.
Right now, we have a lot of crews on the ground, and they are doing assessment. They are doing wellness checks. They are clearing trees. They are making temporary roads. They are providing meals and food to our citizens that are cut off. We are trying to do that, responding to the disaster. We're not in the recovery. We're in the respond mode right now.
I watched a tree fall across my driveway. And I thought, well, I'm here for a while. My youngest son was at home at the time, and he was like, what was that? And I was like, well, just look out your window. Neighbor friend of mine works for the city police for Burnsville. Came over, we chainsawed it up, I moved it. I went over to my neighbor's house, sat over there for a little bit, and we watched what was a creek turn into a river. There was no outside communication. I wasn't able to check on my oldest son. He was living or going to school at East Tennessee State. I remember coming to town, meeting up with the county manager, Lynn, and them up to the EOC building, asked them if there was anything I could do. We kind of got a little team up and started moving food from here, which is in the freezers.
It's just me and my 3 buddies. Had no contact with anybody, didn't know where anybody was. And we started going to work. We went with my dad to the EOC, and he put us on building shelters. In the evening, we went back to the shop, and all the rest of my group of friends had showed up. They said, we didn't have any contact, but we knew you guys would be here. We're like, perfect. We've got a bed. Let's go to work. And we built this crew of residents, kids that we've been friends our entire lives. And we started doing search and rescue.
Our local volunteer fire departments, for probably the first 2 weeks, were the local heroes. That was their command station for every individual community.
We opened up some roads, and it was just like a scene from The Walking Dead of people just coming in groves. They heard the machinery, and they're coming towards you, and we just tell them, hey, keep walking. They're going to pick up the ones that can't walk on a machine and take you on in.
I work for the Red Cross, so I went to our office in Asheville. I said, Yancey County needs help. We're isolated. What can we do? So by Sunday evening, Red Cross had supplies here. We had people that were being helicoptered in from Pensacola, and then they would be driven down to the shelter because there were certain areas in Cattail that were so isolated that people had to just be flown in to be able to get to.
I've worked at the feeding station at First Baptist Church. You see those folks come in there with nothing. I just have to walk out because I'm breaking down and crying on them. And I'm not supposed to do that. I'm supposed to be there to give them support.
Our churches jump in. Our fire departments are doing well checks, search and rescue.
Between 15 and 18 members here, and we would split up, plus the community. We all just split up on side-by-sides and went our ways and checking on everybody.
In 3 days, we were able to accomplish a great feat of being able to put a face in front of every house in our district. We didn't do that without the locals. That was a big relief to their mind.
One of the county commissioners came and got me, said, you need to start cooking. The next day I come in, and they had turned this area, the senior center, into Command Central.
We seen all these military vehicles, helicopters, rescue teams, boats, and I was just in absolute shock. And we seen Jackie, and he had a few friends, and they were pretty well covered up trying to feed everybody.
Working 17 to 18 hours a day cooking, and we were feeding 500-600 people a day.
Some of the first people that we fed were actually first responders that had worked the call when my dad passed. I seen one of the EMS paramedics, and I said, I just want to, thank you for all you did for my dad and what you're doing now. And I thought,
it came full circle, and my dad would have been really proud that we were helping these people who were once again out helping families like they had helped us.
Finally got some service, got a hold of my son, which was pretty good, you know. So, but when you don't get to talk to your kid for a day or two, and you see what's going on around you, it's a little disturbing. But we got through it.
Trey Boone, he's our youth pastor at Concord. So I went to see him and we were talking. Well, his uncle had walked out of Pensacola. And like I said, we didn't have communication. He's asking, has anybody been to Bald Mountain? Because he was worried about his mother. And I said, well, I've been there. I was like, who's your mom? And he told me her name. And I said, she used to be a bus driver. She was my bus driver when I was in elementary school. So I was like, well, I saw her. I saw her sitting on the porch. She was there on the porch. And just to see his eyes, just the relief that I saw in his eyes and just this huge smile. And then 2 weeks later, I was in Pensacola at the fire department delivering supplies, and I saw him. And he said, you'll never know what it meant to me knowing that my mother was okay. So thank you for sharing that information.
Our mountain spirit's strong. We're not broke. We're out here. We're working our tails off to get this place going. We're self-sufficient mountain folks, but sometimes you need a little help.
Guys, make sure you comment, share this. Just do anything to help beat this algorithm and get their stories told. I mean, there's 2 more parts, actually, I'm going to be able to get out of this. So, they're coming up. God bless y'all. Take care. More coming.